Okay, so one of the most common questions I get is certainly, what is your style? So we'll ditch the materials here. So my head, just so you can kind of see the style a bit better, the head is always going to be the exact same. That's the full slimline, just to get that black obsidian look. It's just basically just like the bald look, full slimline. The face is always going to be the Kryptonian ventilator. That stays the same throughout my entire career. That's from the collection on Oolong Island, so that's always going to be your face. I rarely ever wear shoulders. The hands on this style are the Sinestro hands. I forget where you get them from. I think it's a duo reward, maybe. And you can get them in like the battery duo. I could be wrong though. But that's the Sinestro hands. The waist, you got a couple options. Technically, you could wear the controller T3 belt, but I'm wearing the House of L right there. House of L belt. It just has that little bit better of a logo. But you can technically get the same kind of look other than that. The feet are going to be the Corrupted Kryptonian. I believe that's the either briefing award or collection reward from the 4-man alert. I believe it came out during T5, but it's the alert where you fight like Zod at the end. You got that giant crystal thing. You end in like the Paradox tunnel. But it's that alert. I forget what it's called. The chest is the one that stands out to everyone. This is the, once we actually get here, it's the Platinum Kryptonian chest, custom glow. This is the 2015 round 10 SM reward. This chest here. You can get the 2016 chest had a different logo here. So the only way to get like this nice logo with the 3 lines that kind of pulses, that's only available in the 2015. And the legs are from the 2016, once we kind of get there. Here, Platinum Kryptonian pants, custom glow. This was the 2016 round 10 reward for the fast survival mode. And then back, sometimes I wear the, what's his face? My DPS one has a different style. But at least like this back that I always wear is the Cloak of Hades. That's just the one. I know it kind of clips here up at the shoulder, which is kind of annoying sometimes. But this is the style that's more iconic for what I wear. Sometimes I switch to the other back style. What was that stupid back style? I know it's the villain one. I just can't remember his name at the moment. Is it Metal? Yeah, Metal. That's the other back style I wear for my DPS. This one's from the lockboxes. But the Cloak of Hades is more common to me. And then for... That's pretty much the same for my DPS or support roles. The only other style I have is the single target variant. And the single target variant, there's only a few changes. Once again, we'll ditch the materials. So obviously full slimline on the head, Kryptonian ventilator in the face, Doomsday spikes for the back. The waist is just the Trigon waist. Don't know exactly where it came from, but it's just kind of fit with that like kind of Trigon like death theme. Trigon chain belt. So the chest on this one, I'm gonna go through to P again. Oh yeah, this was the variant. Sorry, that's why. So Trigonic shirt. This was the 2015, or no, sorry, 2015 variant to the Trigon SM. 2014 Trigon SM had his face sticking out of the chest. I'm not super a fan of that one because this one was more like kind of subtle. So this is the 2015 variant chest that dropped from Trigon. The original Platinum round 10 chest was the one with his like little face in the center. But I always prefer the variant style for this one. And then the legs, same thing. Once we get the P's for this one. Platinum Trigonic pants, custom glow. That's the 2016 Trigon SM reward. And then besides that back, like I said, was Doomsday Spikes. So the hands for this one, both are going to be the lockbox styles once we actually get there. Phantom Zone Reaver, which is like that Zod. It's like a T1 style in the villains, but that's his hands. And the same thing, that's the Phantom Zone Reaver for the feet. Just because I felt like it just fit the style better. But by no means am I good at making styles, but that's just what I wear. So Phantom Zone Reaver on the head, or sorry, on the hands and feet. SM styles for the rest, pretty much. So where did the name Obsidian Chill come from? At the time I was Ice, and that's where kind of Chill came from, and I was looking for some name just to kind of sound cool in front of it, and I remember this clip from a show I used to watch as a kid, and that's where I kind of got that name from. And then I just, the black style just came from being Obsidian is like a volcanic black rock, so I kind of just kept the theme with there. So I'll let you watch the clip.
Who are you?
I am, as I've always been, Obsidian. And you remember my consort, Striker.
Oh man, we've been duking it out with the greatest generals in Cybertronian history.
Okay, question. Will Trexite ever become a good player? I think you have a better shot at winning the lottery than you will of seeing Trex become a good player. Next question. Can Cost have a shout out? Well, you just got one. Question, how does bagged milk work in Canada? Actually, bagged milk is pretty OP. Takes up less room than having the huge gallon jugs in your fridge. You can just pour it and cut a little hole, pour your milk, there you go. It's cheaper to actually create because it's actually less plastic involved in the jugs. Easy to recycle because you can just kind of toss a little plastic bag in the recycling as opposed to having your entire bin filled with gallon jugs. It's just more convenient, and I've never had an issue with it in Canada. I guess we're just kind of ahead of the curve. Question, is Happy the best DCO player? Well, he certainly died a lot in SM round 20, so I don't know how you can die that much as a tank and be considered a good player, but I don't know. You'd have to ask some other people on that. Question, how would I rank all the powers in terms of DPS? I do plan on doing that after my guide series to do kind of like a compilation video on test server where I'm using all the rotations I used in those videos, just kind of ranking them or kind of comparing them towards the same stats. But I'll do that after my guide series. That also answers the question about what I plan to do after I finish that series. Question, augments or gear mod system? So I do agree that the augment system is where they should have moved to, because in the later years with the gear mods, it just got really tedious. You'd have to have the essence. You'd have to have the the materials, complex, simple, exabytes. So you had like half your inventory full of mod components, where you'd actually have to craft mods each time. And then when the next DLC, when the mods came, you needed new ones, then you'd have to have the recovery kits or buy the total recovery kits from the broker and then recover your mods. So you get the exabytes towards your new ones, but then you'd have to grind for all the new materials. It just got really tedious, or at least with the augment system, it's just one type of XP or to level them, and you just kind of keep adding to it each time. So it's much more convenient of a system than it was for gear mods, especially when you have to mod like your DPS, your support, your PvP. It just becomes a lot all at once to do, each and every DLC. Why the devs can't balance the game? This one's a much... it's an easy and like a hard question at the same time. It basically boils down to since the devs don't actually play their own game. Like at least Spittle in the past, you couldn't fault him because at least he tried. Like he would tank raids, PvP and stuff like that. Yeah, he wasn't that good, but at least he would do it. You know for a fact that Nerd of Prey is not playing the game. You can tell from her streams or when she's talking about the game or doing something with like a player in game or loadout. You can tell that she has no idea what's going on. She might log in to check out different styles or role play or something, but she's not actually playing the game seriously whatsoever, not like Spittle did in the past. The other part of it is the players that the devs listen to, like the community councils in the past, have the wrong group makeup of players, and players of very, very questionable skill level giving advice to the devs. Yeah, there's been some players that were decent, but the way they approached feedback was not the best. Like say, take for example, like you had Soar. Some PlayStation members might remember Soar. Yes, he was a good player and understood the feedback, but he took a very passive approach to it. He was never going to be aggressive in his feedback, saying you need to change this, you need to change this. That just wasn't his personality. So it's just that Maps and the other devs didn't actually play the game, so how can you expect them to balance anything? And the players that did ask and did ask for support either didn't know what they were talking about, or a number of things. Question: what your favorite power is? My favorite power, my favorite power of all time is going to be Hard Light. During the time before Whole Claw was blockable. I forget what game update they changed that is. It was more for like PvP and like Sinestro and Legends, where technically, since it was a tap hold, it should be blockable, like say Spin Shop. But it was just annoying because I would lunge in with Claw, I would clip Whole Claw immediately, like just as muscle memory, and then get knocked down from the ad. It would just be kind of frustrating. But the time leading up to that was my favorite. But each kind of series or each kind of meta will have a different favorite power. Favorite moment in the game? That question, that's really tough to answer after being in the game for 8+ years. Foss 2 Speed Feat was a great achievement, or just beating Foss 2 was a great moment. Beating Prime Battleground on the second day was a good moment. Basically, my favorite moments are more my accomplishments. Like you would say, SM would be around 20, would be a great moment, but that wasn't really a great moment because SM round 20 itself, that round wasn't hard. Like I knew our strategy we had, we weren't going to fail. It was inevitable. So you can't really say that was a great moment. I would say definitely one of the better moments was Mega and Omega feat in Dark Side War Factory Elite, because I knew that raid was universally considered the hardest raid since Paradox Wave. There's tons of leagues and groups that struggled with that raid, in Elite especially. Even they struggled in Reg. But no other leagues were even trying that feat because it was so complicated and they just couldn't survive, let alone go for a Mega and Omega. And with the strategy I came up with preloading deaths and us actually getting that feat. So no, we did work on it. It was really annoying because we tried to get that feat before the DLC. I think that's what kind of sullies that moment a bit. If we could have got that feat during the actual DLC, instead of having to wait till the next one to get like a couple pieces of gear to increase our CR, that would have been the best moment. But it's still a great moment nonetheless. Question: what kind of music do you listen to? I pretty much have a wide range and eclectic music taste. I don't like country. That's about the only thing. But I could listen to like rap, metal, trap, kind of like the new age, like chill music, or it's just kind of it's just kind of synthesizer stuff like that. Dubstep, kind of pretty much everything. It all depends on what my mood is. What's the best DPS power set right now? That's really a question that can't be an answer because it's so reliant on what the raid is. Like if you can melee, it could be Rage. If you can mid-range, it might be Earth. If you have to go single target, it might be like something completely different, like Gadgets. It all depends on the raid, really. How would you rank yourself as a DPS? This one, I wouldn't answer that question in terms of now. Basically, in the game is Prime for DPS, which was before GU36, so before the changes to phase dodge. Actually before GU36. Whatever game update phase dodge changed, I forget what it is, like 20-something or 30-something? I can't remember. But before the jump canceling changes, before the phase dodge changes, this would have been like 2012 to like 2013, in that range. That's where I consider myself in my prime as DPS. And in my prime, I would consider myself probably top 4, top 5 of all players. This I knew for a fact. You had Wonder Diana was going to be first. Satla was going to be second on the EUPS or EUPC. Cirilta on the US side. I put myself there. Then after that, maybe like Pyro. There's like a whole bunch of players in like the technically top 5. But Wonder Diana was the only DPS that I for sure knew that if we DPS 10 times out of 10, I'm not going to beat her or beat him. Sorry, more than he's going to beat me. Satla was just a good creative mind and really good with gadgets. Cirilta, he was a good DPS. I've beat him plenty of times and he's beat me plenty of times. Cirilta would use like everything in his power, like every consumable, every trinket, every kind of like cheese to DPS, and I wouldn't go to those like extreme lengths every time, like all the time bomb cheeses and all that kind of stuff. So with him, you had to pull out every single bag of tricks to beat him, which is just something I didn't want to do all the time. So he did that every time. So that's, props to him. Other than that, I don't include, no offense, but I don't include any PS players during that time because back then it was all about speed and clipping. That was more important than anything else, and you just couldn't do that properly on a PS controller. I know what it was like for Omar to do those hard light rotations on his controller and test those for his light guide, and all the rotations that he struggled with on a controller was just basic to us on PC. It was just no problems doing it. So it was more like, and there's tons of PC players that used gamepads back then instead of keyboard and mouse, and they would get their shit pushed in on damage. So really, during that time of a phase dodge and jump canceling, it doesn't matter how good you thought you were as a PS, you would have got destroyed by the top PC players. It just came down to actual hardware. Next question, rank the healer power sets. Once again, the healer power sets are going to be better for different situations. In terms of like just generic viability, I probably have electric first, then celestial, then probably water, then nature, and sorcery. What is your favorite DLC? It's going to be Origin Crisis. Question, why do you still play DCO? This is, you would think it's a complicated question, but it's really not. Like, it's just, I've been playing DCO for so long, there's just no point in me leaving, you could say. Like, I don't play other MMOs. DCU is my first MMO, so it's not like I play Guild Wars or World at War or WoW or anything else. I came from playing like Call of Duty and Halo and Quake, Doom, Duke Nukem, like, just generic PC games and Xbox games. So DC is just, just something that I've stuck with just because of how much I've invested time-wise and over these years that there's just no point of leaving. I'll just kind of stick with it. What power set could they add in DCU to make it better? I was still a fan of experimental serums. The way they kind of explain that to us, I thought it could be really interesting and be good player skill based, because you'd have to know, because experimental serums was like, okay, one power would be like a defense debuff or like defense buff, one power would be like a health buff, one power would be like healing. So you basically have to know how to use your powers in specific situations to give you the best spot as a tank to survive. So I thought it could be really skill based, because you'd have to know when you'd use defense over health buff or when you'd use whatever buff over other buff. So that's why I liked experimental serums, or at least the way it was described to us. Question, why do I pronounce melee instead of melee? I get that question a lot. To me, I honestly, I don't know. The first time it was explained to me was definitely melee, and then I just kind of stuck with it because it kind of makes sense. Like when I think of like, okay, we're gonna go melee in range DPS. Okay, let's go melee. Let's go melee the boss. It's just it doesn't sound right to me. It's like, okay, I'm gonna go melee. I'm gonna go melee. Question, why do I care about other YouTubers posting guides? For me, it's more so as long as they're going to put the effort into a guide and actually do the testing instead of just finding a rotation in like the first 5 minutes and posting it. I want to see just the effort put into it, because so many people, they all use like the clickbait titles like I've mentioned in the past, or they don't use show parsers, or they're just like crappy players the way they're talking about and describing powers. People are going to see that and then use that, and they're going to become worse at the game because your rotation, you didn't even put time into testing it. So you can see, like, if you go to YouTube and search around some of these guides, some of them are absolutely terrible, and they'll have like 4,000 or 5,000 views just because of all the clickbait stuff. Okay, question, what is my favorite power for each role? That gets a bit tougher to answer for DPS because I don't necessarily have a favorite one. Favorite tank is going to be ice. Favorite controller is going to be mental. I'm just not a fan of the psychic empowerment animation. Favorite healing, when I do heal, it would be nature. I just not a fan of the no shield meta. DPS could be anything. Question, how old am I? I'll be 31 in March. Question, why don't you start your own league? I've been plenty of leagues over DC. To me, it's just the added stress you don't need. Like, I don't need to be a league leader and deal with all the drama or dealing with people asking me to recruit or dealing with having to invite new players or dealing with how to create groups and all that kind of stuff. That I've been in so many, not even so many leagues, but I've been in so many top leagues, but whether it be FAMI or Odyssey or Legacy, Success, there's always drama that comes from just the most basic things. And me being a leader, I don't want to deal with any of that. I just want to kind of play the game. You don't even see me. When's the last time you saw me shouting in LFG saying, need group looking for 5 or 6 players or 5 DPS or whatever? Like, I don't even do that. Like, invite me to a raid, I'll run it. I'll show up, do whatever you want. But I'm not going to go through all the league drama and recruiting and being in charge and dealing with all that kind of stuff. That's just stress I don't need in the game. Question: chicken or curry chicken or curry goat? It's going to be curry chicken, not a goat meat fan. Question: what do I do for a job? I'm a financial advisor at a financial institution in Canada. So with that one, I'll be doing retirement advice, mortgage refinancing, some personal lending, some personal credit, new accounts, estate planning. It's more like a jack of all trades. What I'm doing in there, or investment advice, stuff like that, mutual funds, GICs, RSPs. Question: my thoughts on nth metal. I don't mind nth metal itself. The only thing I disagree with is nth metal being behind a paywall. Like, to realistically level your artifacts or to have a shot at 160, you're going to need nth metal detectors and the seal of completions, which are all from the marketplace. You can't earn an nth metal detector in game. Seals don't drop from bosses. Why couldn't they have seals? Not even completion, but a seals of preservation in boss loot. Because I don't understand why they don't put that. They just put it all behind a paywall. Question: ass or tits guy? I'm definitely a tits guy myself. Question: why are the developers so sensitive to criticism? With that one, I'm not even sure myself. I've certainly seen it over the years in DC, that's for sure. I think a lot of it more has to do with the fact that the devs, once they get some, I guess it just becomes like a sense of pride to them. Like, I know the big thing with Tunzo was that when Tunzo made like a Legends character, like he made Steel. Like, Steel was so OP when it came up for Legends. Everyone knew it was OP. Shields, mines, CC, everything about Steel was OP. But Tunzo wouldn't believe it. He'd be like, nah, it's fine. And everyone's like showing him like in video analysis and breakdowns, like Steel's way out of balance. Like, you need to change this and this and this. And he's like, no, it's fine. Because he's the one that created it. All the changes with like immunity and everything else. So it's when you make something or when you publish it or something that you thought of or code becomes real in a game and people are playing it, you get some sort of sense of pride where if people are saying, no, this is terrible, or you did this and this and this wrong, they just have a negative reaction to it. And it was very hard to get Tunzo to change anything about the game, about what is created. And I'm sure the other devs are similar like that. My response to that is how can you be sensitive to criticism about something to do with a game that you don't actually play? Like, if you hopped on and played the game, every single day or weekly or anything like that, or actually did raids, you would know for sure saying, okay, they're right because this and this and this. So like what they're talking about, like the manacles changes or any of the artifact changes, where it's like, well, this is what the artifacts do and this is what's going to happen. And then they're like, no, it's fine. Manacles is fine the way it is. Gemini's is fine the way it is. But they don't actually know how people are actually using the Gemini because they don't use it themselves. They just can't think of that. So it's, why are you sensitive to criticism when you aren't even aware that what's going on? Question: how do the devs fix PvP? That's a much tougher question to answer. Like, I get it. I get why PvP is not being fixed. How could they? There's little changes they could do. Ideally, it comes down to either their inability, or I don't know if it's just because of the game engine or whatever. They can't separate combos and separate fixes or separate weapons from PvE to PvP. So it's okay. So if this works, this is how it works in PvE. This is how it works the same in PvP. They have to somewhat change that. Like, they've done little things like the shield changes and everything else, but ideally certain powers should work different ways in PvP than PvE. Like weapons, like weapon mastery should have nothing to do with PvP because you can't balance weapon mastery for PvP. So it's pretty much, you need like almost a separate game to balance it around just for PvP, and either they're unwilling or unable to take that step. Besides that, they can't really figure out exactly how for immunity to work. I think it partially comes down to is that the community can't agree either. Like, I could ask like 10 different PvPers and probably get 5 or 6 different answers about what the game needs, unless I'm like handpicking them because I know they agree with me. But if you picked like 5 or 6 like random like good PvPers that PvP a lot and ask them what needs to be fixed, they're going to have different suggestions for immunity, how counters should work, how PvP gear should work, how the seasons could work. it's hard to come to a consensus. It's hard to give the devs like one answer. This is what you should do, because so many people are going to disagree with it or have a different type of opinion. So I think that has a lot to do with it as well for why they can't fix PvP.